Radio Row in Indianapolis. It's Combine time as teams look for their next superstar. Some of the biggest names in sports and entertainment will be right here. Get ready for the 2025 draft, baby. It's the Jake Asman Show.
Live from Indianapolis, our Combine coverage continues, and joining us right now is the player whose jersey was the first jersey I ever owned as a diehard Jet fan, former Jets quarterback, Jet legend, Chad Pennington. Chad, thanks so much for coming by.
Yes, thank you for having me.
Now, this is the greatness of the Combine. I'm about to leave for the day, and I see you outside signing autographs, and I'm like, there's no way I'm not going up to say hi to Chad Pennington.
It's a good time. We're here with the NFL Legends community. We do a mentor program with all of our prospects. 25 years ago this week, I was here going through the whole Combine process, and so it's a good chance for us as former players to connect with current prospects, talk to them about the week, the expectations, and just kind of shed some light on what they're getting ready to get into.
What do you remember about that Combine 25 years ago?
Well, I promise you that the entertainment value then is not like it is now. That's for sure. I got one shirt and one sweatshirt had quarterback 16 on it. But, you just remember the intensity of it, the importance, magnitude of it. For me, it was a game changer. There were three of us that were considered the top three quarterbacks, and I needed to perform well here. Unfortunately, I did, and it really changed the trajectory of my draft status.
Take us back to draft night with the Jets, because that was a historic draft in Jet history. Yeah. 4 first-round picks. You're obviously a part of that class. What do you remember about draft night and just being a part of that class with 3 other first-rounders?
Well, one thing I remember is that, I did not know that the New York Jets were that involved and interested, really. The talk throughout the whole process was Pittsburgh and San Francisco. But I do remember that New York was one of the 4 teams that I had formal interview with and some extensive conversation with. And so it kind of came out of the clear blue, especially knowing what the Jets had coming back in 2000. Also knowing that they had 4 draft picks. So it was interesting, but it was a fun time. We spent time together as a family in Tennessee, and I remember getting that call, and it was a special moment.
When you think back to your time with the Jets, I want to start with just the first couple of years, because I've been advocating for this for a while. The Jets, in their history, since really they've drafted quarterbacks in the first round. That guy's had to play right away.
Right.
You got a chance to sit and learn from a great veteran and Vinny Testaverde. What was that experience like, and how did that help you when you finally were given the opportunity in that 2002 season to be the guy?
Yeah, I was very fortunate. Vinny was amazing to learn from, and he was a great vet to watch. And so many things I took from him, just learning how to be a professional, handling the professional space, making the transition from college to pro. And I felt like in my 3rd year, even though I didn't enter the year as a starter, whenever my number was called, I was truly ready. I felt like that 3rd year, the light bulb went on. I do feel like there is a process, like you're saying. Sometimes guys can survive in the first couple of years, but I think through that year 3, 4, and 5 is when the light bulbs should start to come on, and you start to feel like, okay, not only do I belong, but I can manage this. I can handle it. I'm in control. First couple of years, you're just hanging on to the seat of your pants and trying to do everything you can just to fit in and make sure you don't make too many mistakes.
What was it like to be named the starter? Remember that 2002 season, the team gets off to a bad start. Team's 2-5. Coach Herm has the famous "you play to win the game" speech at the podium. And you're inserted as the starter, and the team takes off. And that is actually, Chad, I don't want to make you feel old, but that's the last time the Jets have actually won the division, that 2002 year.
Yeah, it was a special year, 1, obviously. But 2, what I remember about that week, and actually I was named the starter in week 5, I believe it was. We were 1-3, and we were getting ready to play the Chiefs, which we lost that game, and then got to 2-5, like you said, and then finally made that jump and that change. But 2 things I remember about that year. First of all, I just remember the conversation I had with Coach Edwards when he wanted to make the change, and the confidence he instilled in me to make that change. That was really big for me. And then secondly, I remember our team making a cognizant effort after the 2-5 start, going to San Diego and saying, listen, we got to change this, and we've got to do things differently. And it was really about our belief system in each other and in our coaching staff and what we're trying to do. We did that, had that big win against San Diego, and was able to ride that all the way in. And one of my favorite moments being a Jet is that 3-week period of beating, coming off the Sunday night win against New England and beating Green Bay and being able to become AFC's champions, rolling that into the first round of the playoffs and beating the Colts 41-0 in the first round. That was that time period, that 3 weeks, man, that the city was rocking, Jet fans were excited. It was really special.
They say there's no better place to win than when you're winning in New York.
Sure.
You got to experience some of that when you were the Jet quarterback. That 3-week stretch, take us inside what that feeling was like, especially the last two games, because you guys were dominating Green Bay. Then you dominate Indianapolis. So it's like the Jet fan had 2 straight weeks of being able to party at the old stadium.
Yeah, it was. I remember the energy in the stadium for those 2 weeks. I specifically remember the energy during the Green Bay game because as we entered that game, the outcome of the Miami-New England game had not been decided.
How about New England helping the Jets?
Correct. Yeah, exactly.
That.
And New England had to win. And so, we were playing well, but we were kind of going back and forth, and the crowd was like, okay, do we get excited? Do we not? Because we don't know if we're going to be able to go or not. And then all of a sudden, we get the news that New England has won. If we win, we're now the division champs. And, man, that place was electric. It was awesome.
When I think about your career, Chad, I mean, when you were out there healthy, the team won games. And when you think back to your career with the Jets, how often do you think about just the times that you suffered some injuries and weren't able to be out there because you were one of the best quarterbacks this franchise has had? And I just feel like there's always that what if Chad Pennington was healthy.
Yeah.
When you were out there, this team won games. They say the Jets have not had a franchise quarterback since Joe Namath. I push back on that every time. You were a franchise quarterback for this team.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. It really is. And I don't really have many regrets, really no regrets in my career, other than the fact that I wish I would have taken a little bit more time after that first shoulder surgery just to truly get healthy because I was just surviving on my mind after that first shoulder surgery. Probably came back too early, and which I think led to the second one. And then it's just a spiraling downhill effect after that. But I wouldn't trade too much for it. I enjoyed playing there in New York. I loved my teammates and my coaches, and the experience was great. And I laid it all out there. I feel like trying to be available for your teammates and your team and your fans is important, and that's what I tried to do.
I remember the 2004 playoffs. I mean, just how banged up was that shoulder, but you still were able to play well. I mean, I think of one of my favorite memories as a fan is that throw to Santana Moss in the playoff game. I mean, you can't throw a better ball, and my memory of that is that you were playing through a significant shoulder injury during.
Yeah, I had a torn rotator cuff, and I'd been playing with it for 7 weeks. And so it was rough. It was rough, and it's frustrating at the same time because you just couldn't do the things you knew that you wanted to do, and so you're trying to find ways just to be successful. And of course, we couldn't share that information because you don't want to become a target. It was one of those times where you're just trying to do everything you can do to be available, to work through the injury, deal with it later. And we still felt like me being the starter and helping us win was our best chance to win.
2006, one of my favorite seasons as a Jet fan because it was so unexpected, right? Eric Mangini is a first-time head coach, and by the end of the season, he's being called the Mangenius, and he's having a cameo on The Sopranos because of your guys' success out there. Your comeback player of the year in 2006 as well. What do you remember about that 06 season?
Well, I remember it being gratifying to finally be able to play 16 games, stay healthy, lead our team to the playoffs, have some big-time wins, try to get over the hump of the injuries and things like that. It was a special year. It really was. And we faced a lot of adversity there, too. We got to 6-6, basically had to win out to be able to make the playoffs, and we did that. I remember the huge win on Monday Night Football against the Dolphins. In the rain. I was so sick. I couldn't hold anything down. No one knew.
Really?
I was so sick. I couldn't hold anything down. I couldn't even eat ice chips. That's how sick I was. And so trying to manage that and trying to find a way to win, and we did. That was pretty sweet.
In your Jet career, playing with both Herm, playing for Mangini, what are some of the memories that you have of those two coaches? Because I guess Al Groh counts as well for a year there. But I want to ask you about that because obviously your teammate briefly was Aaron Glenn, who's now the head coach of the Jets. So I want your thoughts just on the coaches you play with the Jets and then AG as a teammate and how you think he might translate now as the head coach.
Yeah, I with both Al Groh and Eric Mangini, they were really, really just smart football coaches that had a lot of knowledge that I tried to tap into. Especially from the defensive side, and they're very academic about it. That's how they kind of approached it, and so I enjoyed that part of it. With Herm, he was such a great motivator, gave you such confidence to believe in yourself, believe in what you're doing. Love playing for him. I remember that you play to win the game speech too, and just the momentum that he was able to create and the belief system that he was able to create was really, really special. And then with AG, I just remember, first of all, how smart he was. And I got a chance to play, 2 years with him. Also, how competitive he is. He's very competitive, and I think that's what makes him not only was great as a player, but makes him great as a coach as well.
When you left the Jets, obviously they bring in Brett Favre. I mean, were you caught off guard in real time? Like, what take us through what it was like? Because I mean, happened over the summer. Training camp was already underway. Just it seemed like that was like the ultimate surprise for a lot of Jet fans, and I can't even imagine what you were experiencing as the franchise
Yeah,
quarterback.
it wasn't a surprise. You think back to that time, there was the rhetoric about it for about 2 weeks. Now, when it happened, was a little bit of a surprise. We were in
Right.
Cleveland on a Wednesday night, getting ready to play Cleveland Browns first preseason game on Thursday. I get a knock on my door at 11:30 at night, so I know they're not wanting to talk about game plan. There's something else going on at
Is that
midnight.
from like Mike Tannenbaum? Like who's knocking on your
That
door
was
to
from
tell you?
Steve Yarnell, our security
Wow.
operations director. And then I went up and talked with Eric in his room, and had a good conversation about it. And then but probably at that time, it was time. And thankfully, I had an old jet guy in Bill Parcells bring me down to Miami,
Yeah, we
and be
know.
able to
We know.
be able to reunite with Dan Henning and Bill. And so it was kind of like I knew what that program was about and knew what the expectations were. So that was familiar territory for me.
I mean, it had to have been so sweet that last game though to stick it to the Jets. You lock up the division. I mean, I can't just the human nature of it. Like
Yeah.
you got the last laugh. Like that's the ultimate like.
That's the
Hey,
way
I came out
sports
on
work,
top. Yeah.
right? That's the way sports work. It was interesting. I remember for about 6 weeks, it really took Dolphin fans 6 weeks to kind of warm up to me because they were so used to rooting against me.
Right.
But then winning cures all of that, and so we start to win, and then, lo and behold, here we've got to go week 17 up to New York and beat the Jets for the division. And what I remember is we played the Jets the first game of the year, play them last game of the year, and the emotion that was inside of me was so different from week 1 to week 17. Week 1, I just wanted to fight. I had no business really playing quarterback. I was so emotional about the situation. Week 17, it was truly about ball and trying to win a division. And so I just remember the dichotomy and the difference in those two situations was pretty unique.
I think my favorite Chad Pennington stat was until Josh Allen, you were the quarterback that had won the AFC East besides Tom Brady for like that 20-something year span. You know.
Right. Yeah, those 2 years, 02 and 08, both unique in and of themselves and both really special in my mind.
For you, we were talking off air before we started this. You're coaching now. You're coaching your son in high school. I can't tell you the amount of times people on my chat, people have called into the show, say, "What about Chad Pennington? Bring him in as a coach on the staff."
Right.
One of your teammates now is the head coach of the Jets. Have you ever given NFL coaching any thought? Is that something you'd be interested in?
Not really, because with my boys, I'm really enjoying coaching my boys and watching them grow up. I was able to coach Cole all the way through his high school career. Now he's at Gardner Webb, and then now Luke is just finishing his senior year. He's going to go to the University of Dayton. We're really excited about that. We just won the 1A Class A state championship in Kentucky this year. That was really special. And my sophomore Gage, he was on that team too. So I grew up on a Friday night bus. I remember the impact that my dad had on his players. I'm trying to emulate that. I really enjoy that level, and I enjoy it mostly because I'm able to be with my boys and watch them grow up and coach them and their buddies in the greatest game ever, which is the game of football. And I love using the game of football to help develop young men. I think there's so many great life skills and life lessons that they can learn within our game, and learning those core values is really important for them being successful later on.
I just hope one day, you change your mind. You're like, you know what, I'm coming back. I mean, when you look back in your career, like, do you still feel connected to the Jets? Are they still like, are you following the team? Or are you
Sure,
what's
sure.
your relationship with the organization?
Raising boys and coaching high school ball,
Sure.
you're pretty busy, but at the same time, I always I want to see our Jets do well, and
It's only been 14 years since the playoffs.
and be competitive and really set the standard for how to play good solid football. I'm interested and really excited to watch Aaron and his staff and see what he can do there for sure.
When you look at quarterbacks today, and I want to ask you about this because you're here with the Legends community, you're getting a chance to talk to these guys up close. A lot of people have the Jets maybe taking a quarterback with their first round pick, maybe trading up for one of these guys. Just what are your overall thoughts, just getting to know some of these guys the last couple of days, what this quarterback class is all about?
Well, we just started our orientation tonight, so I'll get a chance to just kind of get a feel for them. I think the biggest thing, I think the biggest challenge for our young quarterbacks nowadays is, number one, the lack of patience in development. I feel like our league, we don't produce enough good quarterbacks. I think we got to do a better job of that across the league because we're not patient enough. And part of that is because we want to be entertained. And when you're trying to develop players, you've got to put the entertainment piece aside and let these guys develop. And then secondly, just being really cognizant of, okay, when is it time to place a $1 billion organization on the shoulders of a young man? And that's different for everybody. And so you really got to dive into the young man and see what he's about and what he can handle and what's not ready for him to handle. There's a lot that goes into that. The game of football is such a people business. That's what it's about. These guys aren't robots. They're not Madden figures that you just kind of replace and get the same product. It's not how it works. And so really diving into them with the relationship piece and understanding who they are and what makes them tick is really important.
All right, some Long Island questions for you, Chad. A
Okay.
fellow Long Island guy.
Okay.
You actually were telling me off air you lived in a couple spots on Long Island,
Right.
but your last place is not far from where I grew up in Syosset. What was your favorite spot on Long Island? I mean, when Chad Pennington was living life as the franchise quarterback for the Jets and this team was winning games, where were you hanging out?
Well, I'll tell you, okay, so my favorite steakhouse actually that we would eat would be Christos in Astoria, Queens area. But what I do miss about New York is certainly the food and the great delis.
Yes.
The delis and the diners. That's where it's at. Those are my people, and I just love it, and I miss it. Just to be able to access that type of food. Luckily, in Lexington, it's a unique southern town in that it does have a lot of mom and pop shops and local flavor. So I've been very surprised and pleased with that, but nothing like New York. It's just, and anytime we go back, I just want to go sit at a diner because you can get anything and everything. It's all good.
That's great.
So it's good stuff.
Well, it's interesting because, if you played in like this generation of Jets, your experience would be different because it's basically all in New Jersey now. The facilities there is where all the players
That's exactly
live.
right.
So, I mean, I miss the days of Hofstra. I grew up going to training camp practices
Yes.
with my dad, watching you at Hofstra every summer. Now Hofstra doesn't even have a football program either.
I know, it's wild. And when I was released is when we were making the move
Right.
to Jersey. So it is certainly, I'm sure it's a different experience being on that side for sure.
Chad, thank you for doing this. I mean,
Yes.
just bumping into you and you being willing to come on beats the world. I swear, man. But the number 10 jersey, I guess I'll have to send you a picture of it. It's probably like a children's medium, but it's somewhere in my parents' house. First jersey I ever owned. So I think I speak for every Jet fan out there. Thank you for everything you brought to the team and
Thank you.
continued success coaching. I mean, can we get one of your sons to be drafted by the Jets? So at least we get
That's going to be up to
Pennington
them.
involved again?
That's going to be up to them
Yeah.
for sure.
He's Chad Pennington. My name is Jake Asman. We're live from Indy all week long. It's Radio Row coverage here on the Jake Asman Show at the NFL Combine.